I think most of human history and most of myth and religion has been a question of refining our understanding of things we can't control. So when our ancestors were alone and without any building or farming yet as being an idea, we were hunter-gatherers, as the phrase is, their children looked at the mothers and fathers and they said, what is it that pushes leaves out of trees? It's something that's beyond our control. I know if I pick a stone up, the stone is picked up. But what is the power behind a leaf coming out of a tree? Happens every year. What is this fire that comes out of a mountain? What is the water that drops out of the sky? These are things over which we have no control. And so it's very natural that our ancestors gave them personality. It's the first thing we do. It's as much art and literature as it is religion to make a story out of these forces. And so you name a god of the mountain that roars fire, you name a god of the clouds and the thunder, and you have a god of nature and of growth and the harvest, and one of decay, and you make rituals out of it. But then slowly you begin to understand them. And each one that you understand, the god disappears. And I think Plato and the Greeks understood the idea of heaven. Although they talked about God and heaven, they knew them exactly as a model, as an idea. There is an ideal to which we strive. And the Greeks are constantly striving towards something better. They don't believe, as Simon Raven, the novelist, put it, the genius of the Greeks lay in this understanding of eschatology, of the idea of a life after death. And it was put by Sinon, I think, the Greek, who said, any single person who tells you that they know what happens to a human being after they have died is either a liar or a fool. It's a simple and obvious thing to say, but the Greeks had that. And it's mysterious to us because we tribally and for hundreds of years, almost 1,500 years, struggled to have such a simple, honest, open idea. Yeah. Anybody who tells you what happens after you die is either a fool or a liar.
I've read, Stephen, I've read you saying somewhere that we must believe there is no life after death.
Oh, yes.
And because we will live a very bad life unless we do believe, because if we think this is just a preparation for us.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
I remember being shocked, before he shocked us for other reasons, by Mel Gibson. When I know, but he was being interviewed, this is in the 80s, at the very height of his young stardom, when he was the coolest man on the planet, virtually. And I had no idea that he belonged to this particularly severe Catholic sect in Australia that his father was a member of. But the interviewer said, I believe I've read somewhere, Mel, that you believe in life after death and in God. And Mel Gibson said, well, I know one thing for a fact. There's got to be more to it than this. I thought, what? What? Even if you were just an ordinary guy, to say, oh yeah, there's America, there's Australia, there's Europe, there's the Lake District, there's the poles, there's the deserts, there's the tropics, there's the bushes,
there's the galaxy, there's the universe.
But there's got to be more than that, surely. But not only that, you are a star who can have as much sex as you can eat and as much money as you could possibly demand, and you feel it's somehow not enough, And this idea that, and of course, as all kinds of obvious ways of knowing that religion, uses the afterlife and the threat of something better as a way of allowing people or forcing people to put up with what they've got. But yes, I do believe that even on its own terms, if you believe in an afterlife, it limits this life. It's just, you've got to, as Oscar Wilde said, try the fruit of every tree, of every orchard in the world. And some will be bitter and some will be too addictive and so on. But if you... And so I often say to religious people, I said, I would say, well, suppose, a Calvinist appears at the gates of heaven and St. Peter says, so what did you make of... cannabis sativa, the plant there. Oh, I never tried that. Oh, no. Have you any idea how much effort went into making this very special plant? I'm not saying you should have nothing but you didn't even try it? Well, what about wine? Oh, no, wine touched my lips. You fucker, do you know? Do you know how complex the grape is? Unique of all fruits, you don't have to add sugar for it to turn into this remarkable drink, and you didn't even bother to try it. That's such an extraordinary idea. I mean, you should, on your deathbed, you should be going, damn it, I never drank milk from the armpits of a Nepalese virgin, or whatever it is that, I don't know, that wouldn't be my particular one, but some people, I never climbed Kilimanjaro, I never, there's so much.
That's so much. Beautifully put, exactly right.
And you walk up to the pearly gates and you are confronted by God. What will Stephen Fry say to him, her, or it?
I will basically, what's known as theodicy, I think. I'll say bone cancer in children? What's that about? How dare you? How dare you create a world in which there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It's utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world which is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I would say.
And you think you're going to get in on
No,
that?
but I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to get in on his terms. They're wrong. Now, if I died and it was Pluto, Hades, and if it was the 12 Greek gods, then I would have more truck with it, because the Greeks they didn't pretend not to be human in their appetites and in their capriciousness and in their unreasonableness. They didn't present themselves as being all-seeing, all-wise, all-kind, all-beneficent. Because the God who created this universe, if it was created by God, is quite clearly a maniac, utter maniac, totally selfish, we have to spend our life on our knees thanking him? What kind of God would do that? Yes, the world is very splendid, but it also has in it insects whose whole life cycle is to burrow into the eyes of children and make them blind. They eat outwards from the eyes. Why? Why did you do that to us? You could easily have made a creation in which that didn't exist. It is simply not acceptable. So, atheism is not just about not believing there's a God, but on the assumption that there is one. What kind of God is he? It's perfectly apparent that he's monstrous, utterly monstrous, and deserves no respect whatsoever. The moment you banish him, your life becomes simpler, purer, cleaner, more worth living, in my opinion. I'm just saying, if there is a loving God, how come children get bone cancer? Answer me that. It's that simple. It's not a game. I'm not trying to be funny. It's just, how can you begin to say there is a loving God and give children bone cancer? So they howl and scream in agony and die. Or because I want them in heaven. That's a ridiculous nonsense. That can't be true.
There are certain things that science can't explain. But if you actually decide to believe in science, you have to accept the one big miracle that happened at the beginning, which is the Big Bang.
You don't.
And there's no question about what happened before it.
But that's exactly my point. What happened before God then? It's exactly the same argument. It's meaningless. It's basic logic collapses that point of Russell straight away. Yes, listen, there's this rather feeble thing that people say is science doesn't know everything, and the assumption therefore is that you can then proceed as if what you've said is science knows nothing. All right, there isn't a scientist alive who claims that science knows everything. Any scientist would be incredibly disappointed if they felt that the end of science had come and the last sum had been done and that the last apprehension about the universe had been made. I mean, look at the Large Hadron Collider. They're all terribly excited at the possibility that the Higgs boson field won't be discovered, won't be proven. And then the Standard Model will have to be totally rewritten, and that'll be something thrilling for scientists. If you want to hear something that a scientist usually says, it's "I don't know," because that's basically the tool of science is to take your ignorance and to try and find out. It's that simple. The pleasure of finding things out, as Richard Feynman called it. Now, as humans, we don't spend our time, unless we are scientists 24 hours a day, just finding things out. We live, we love, we make mistakes, we wonder why this happens to us in a metaphysical, emotional, moral, social, sexual way. We have all kinds of worries and fears and disturbing thoughts about life in the universe, and science can't even begin to cover them, and no scientist would claim that it does. But that doesn't mean that Genesis is true. That doesn't mean that Sunni Muslims are right to blow up Shiite Muslims. It doesn't mean that that Hindus are right to blow up Muslims in India. None of that follows from the basis that science doesn't know everything. Science doesn't know everything, therefore I'm going to ram my religion down your throat and tell these women what to wear in public and whether or not they can go to school. How does that make sense?